To pen name or not to pen name, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous anonymity, or take shelter against a sea of adoring fans, but by changing anything, lose them. Happy Friday Fun Day, everyone! Yay! Today's topic is to pen name or not to pen name. You'll have to ignore my fan. It is super hot in here, so I am sweating, and I don't want to sweat through my video. So there's background noise, but it's pleasant. You can't hear my kids screaming upstairs. So I have a lot to say, but maybe we'll get it done in 10 minutes or less. I have notes this time. 3 pages, but who cares? So, I just wanted to start out with what is the point of a pen name? A nom de plume if you're French, or a pseudonym if you're Latin, or any other English-speaking country, whatever. There are many reasons to have a pen name. A lot of people choose them for several different reasons, so I think we'll go over a couple of them here. Some people want to remain anonymous, at least at the start. Either they don't want the notoriety of being somebody's favorite author, and sometimes they're not as confident in their skills right away, and therefore prefer anonymity until they're more confident in either their writing skills or their public speaking or public skills, because sometimes if you're an author, you have to do book tours and things like that, but some people don't want that kind of public presence. And some, like Joy and Jake both mentioned, might want to better fit into a certain genre by changing or by adopting a name and a persona that is marketable to that particular genre. For instance, V.C. Andrews is a male who wrote rather twisted family dysfunction novels that dealt with some super edgy material. Really a lot of messed up stuff, but they were marketed toward women. But when you write that kind of thing, maybe you want a gender neutral name just because, some guy writing about that might be perceived differently than a woman writing about that kind of thing. I don't know why, but a lot of people ate it up, so, including me, I read a few of his novels, and they're cringy, but they're not bad. Like, he's a good storyteller. I don't know how anonymous he was from the beginning, if everybody knew, and I just learned late, but he, until he became known as a good storyteller, maybe he started out with a very neutral name in order to break into the market and sell the books, and then eventually reveal himself as a man, not a woman, writing these, I don't want to call them romance. They're almost romance, but they're really more like thrillers. They're interesting, but he does tell a good story, and he does have villains you love to hate. Some people will change their name to fit at eye level on a bookshelf in a bookstore. I don't think this is as common now as it was in like the 90s, because that's when I read about it, like the 90s, early thousands, is that some people whose names like Zelinsky or Adams, V.C. Andrews had no problems, obviously, things like that, where you're on like the very beginning of a high shelf or a very bottom of a low shelf, and somebody would be looking for you necessarily, unless they're like a very thorough browser. But some people, just like me, I'm short. I'm walking through a book section and I'm looking at the middle 2 sections of the book. So a lot of people wanted like M names, R names, things like that would fit in those middle sections of the bookshelves. And it would be a lot more visible to your average random browser who happens to just be walking into the section for fun. Especially since selling books has become so big, the sections have filled out so much. Some would change to fit the genre. I think Jake touched on this, I can't remember, and possibly Joy did too. If you have a name like Ophelia Flowerbottom, you're probably not going to be selling military hard sci-fi necessarily. I mean, you could, nobody's stopping you from doing so, but it's not necessarily a name that might be associated with that kind of genre, whereas somebody like Jack Hardstack might not be selling like fluffy sweet romance or anything like that. I mean, he could if he wanted to. So they might change their name to fit more in with the types of authors' names that are in that genre. Going back to Joy's question about whether we've seen people change their names to an opposite gender in order to fit into a section, they probably have. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But, changing your name just to fit your name into a genre, people have done that too. I personally would consider it just because Devon Steele is so close to Danielle Steele, and if I were to write historical romance or just literary type romance or whatever, I might be confused with her. However, that could be a really good selling point for me, so I might reconsider that, just because it's like, hey, it's close enough. But then again, I wouldn't want somebody thinking that I'm Danielle Steele too, but that would be flattering, I guess. I don't know. Some people change their name to write whatever the heck they want in whatever genre they want without losing their fan base. If you gain notoriety in one genre with the name and break into another that is very different and your fans follow you, but you've got a fan base, say in romance, I'm just going to stick with that because that's the easy one, and they all follow you over to like guts and gore horror thrillers, they might get turned off, you know, just maybe not. Maybe they enjoy that. But some people, in order to swap genres and be able to go back and forth or do whatever they want, they'll change their name per genre. And some people don't hide that fact, and it works perfectly for them. And some of them do hide that in order to be like, I don't want to associate my one name with my other one just in case people get squicked out and stop reading me altogether. It's personal in that case. So there are a few examples that I have. Nora Roberts is a big one. Nora Roberts writes romantic fiction, and J.D. Robb, her pseudonym, writes, I don't know exactly, but I think it's like adventure thrillers. So it's not straight up romance, and I don't even know if the other one's straight up romance, but she writes two different genres and two different names. Jane Ann Krentz is another one. Look her up on Wikipedia. She has had 7 pseudonyms, and she is now writing under 3 of them. So she writes like historical fiction, romance, mystery, thrillers, and fantasy, I want to say, something like that. But she really keeps the main 3. And I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't remember what they are. And it's worked well for her. I mean, I think I have a huge box of her stuff in my closet somewhere. Another is Stephen King. And his is actually kind of funny because he started out and he gained huge notoriety. Everybody loved his stuff, and he's a prolific writer. But he experimented with using a pseudonym in case his popularity as an author with this one name was just a fluke. And the Wikipedia article was funny. It said that somebody figured out, because the styles were very similar, so they figured out that he was probably the same guy, and Richard Bachman died, and they called it Cancer of the Pseudonym, which I found pretty funny. There are some people who should write under pseudonyms, like George R.R. Martin, who I will never stop ragging on. If he's going to write non-Song of Ice and Fire books in the middle of writing his Song and Ice and Fire books, he should use a pseudonym so we don't rake him over the coals for not paying attention to the stuff he should be finishing. That's just my personal opinion. Now, the other part that I'd wanted to touch on was why I would personally use a pseudonym or not. So I've considered this for a very, very long time. This is something that I think about when I'm driving. I think about it. I've discussed it with my husband. I've tried to figure out where I stand on the pen name issue because I like writing in many different genres and I have many different styles. I have been told that my name, Devin Steele, sounds very much like an author's name. I'm like, yeah, that's great. I could totally write under that name, but which would I choose? I think the thing that would worry me the most was if I were to write the dark, edgy stuff that I think about and want to write about, and I'm like, hey, I wrote a book, and then people from church and my family all read it, and they're like, wow, that's cool. But I could tell them, hey, you know, this is not your style, you wouldn't want to read it, but I don't know. So that would be one thing that I would think about, is that I might, if I were to write like sweet romance, which I do want to write, or noble bright fantasy, it's cleaner and more like the good guys win. It's very much like dark versus light and good versus evil, and they clash and good wins out over evil and there's a happy ending and all that kind of thing. And I enjoy that totally. But I want my characters to be seriously flawed and to make really huge mistakes. And there are some things that I really would like to explore as an author that I don't know a lot of people would really be accepting of. And so I've thought long and hard about, you know, if I were to publish all my clean stuff, and I say clean because I don't plan to like get really naughty or anything like that, but I mean the easier to digest over a larger audience under my regular name, and then pick a pseudonym for stuff that's darker, edgier, grimdark. I don't think I'll ever write grimdark, but that's an idea. But then I fight with myself because I want to be authentically honest And am I dividing myself because I have two sides of myself, or am I dividing and judging their sensitivity levels? It's this long philosophical argument that goes on in my head, and it's kind of dumb probably, but that's the kind of thing I think about. So I'd love to know what you guys think about pen names. How do you approach that kind of dilemma where you may have an audience that you want to keep at a certain subject, and you have one over here that you may not want to scandalize this audience, but this one is just a different style? Would you choose a pseudonym, or would you just say, hey, I write all the genres, I write what I want? In the age of self-publishing, you almost can do that, and you just market a certain way. I don't know. So to conclude, pen names are very personal decisions based on varying factors that would impact somebody's success of their publications, or the impact they want to have on people and their quality of life. So I personally am conflicted by it, but I guess I have to actually finish something in order to really make that decision eventually, because I write for myself in general. Most of the time when I write, it's not a means to an end. It's personal fulfillment. And so most of the time I'm just thinking, well, if I were to ever publish this kind of thing that I'm currently working on, would it be under me, or would I fake a new persona? I don't want somebody to think I'm just this dark and twisted. I don't know. Those of you who know me, and a few of you do, you can tell me what you think in the comments. Whatever. Anyway, I'm starting to lose this. It's so hot in here, and it's so hot outside, and it's late on a Friday, so this is probably going to be Happy Saturday, everyone. I'm going to go to shout-outs. Lydia, I do believe in writer's block. I totally do. I get it all the time, and it's harder when you don't sleep. It really is, because your brain's just everywhere. I've had so many projects lately. I've been completely brain dead. I took a mental vacation last week, and it was great. I think I vegged on YouTube for a few days. I'm just like, I'm tired and done. So it's one of those things when you get tired and it's hard to stay motivated to do anything. But it really does help when you have the support of other people. Joy, the buffering is not that it's contagious, it's that it's hot and it's summer and we're all like roasting, and so our brains are just like, that's the best you're gonna get. I don't know. Now I got all my words out. As for your question about Mary Shelley, she was writing literary horror, so it was a literature thing. I think it was cool that kind of thing was written by a woman, but a lot of it, if you know the story about that, a lot of it was relationship. There was some horror involved, but I think that there were some relationship aspects there, and that's a very female thing, like Jake was saying, to focus on. She was using a horror tactic to write about literary subject matter. And I don't know about women not getting taken seriously. So there's a lot of controversy right now about women in publishing, and I honestly think that, okay, and this is an unpopular opinion, and y'all just bear with me, because I know it is. I think you should write the book you want to write, and you go publish the book you want to publish, and don't listen to anybody else. And I think that a lot of women give up because we're just not aggressive enough about what we want, and so we don't go out and we don't say, no, I want to publish this book, and then you find a way to publish the book no matter what. If I want to write hard military sci-fi, I'm going to write it, because it's America and I can do that. And I don't think anybody's not going to read it. If it's a good book, they'll read it. But I do think, though, just because of my particular religious background, there are some times where women have to probably hide as men in order to be taken seriously in more religious circles, just because there's that authenticity of women being able to have an authority on any religious subject matter. And I actually did consider doing a pseudonym just for that, like a guy's pseudonym, just to publish religious subject matter, and then like reveal myself later when everybody's like, yeah, ooh, he's got a lot of good things to say, and then be like, haha, I'm a woman. Would that be the Christian thing to do? Or a horrible troll thing to do? Would I do that? I totally would do that. You know me. Anyway, think I touched on a lot of what Jake was talking about too, where it's a marketing issue and the market knows what it wants. But if you write a good story, people will read your story. Somebody will be your audience. Write what you want to write. And if you feel like you want to hide behind a pseudonym, do it. I mean, it's just a matter of choosing the right one, I guess. Anyway, I've been here a long time, so I'm going to stop talking now and edit this monster. And I will see you guys next week. So Lydia's on Sunday, Joy's on Monday, Jake's on Wednesday, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye!